Hello and welcome back. So, what a crazy week it's been with this trade war, this pending trade war. I believe China still has some tariffs of 10%. I didn't hear anything about those being removed, but I'm pretty surprised by the reactions in Canada and especially the politicians. They all seem to have that same emotional retaliation style reaction this week where, it's like a bad breakup. And I deal with a lot of breakups in real estate, selling homes for, divorced couples and separated couples. And this was like worse than any of these. Just like emotionally driven reactions. They're like pulling liquor off of the off the shelves in the LCBO in Ontario and then putting them back. I guess they're putting them back now today since there's no tariffs that are happening right now. Same with BC. They're targeting red states, booing national anthems. Like, this is Canada, like booing the American national anthem, like the girl singing the national anthem at the Raptors game. She didn't do anything, but she's singing the song and getting booed. People are canceling trips to the U.S. Like, the people in the U.S. didn't do anything to you. This is the leaders that are squabbling. This is like the parents, right? And even the banks are freaking out. Like, BMO comes out and says like 6 rate cuts in a row they're forecasting due to these tariffs. And emergency bonds are calling for emergency rate cuts in between meetings. Like, it's craziness. So I wanted to look at what happens during trade wars and how do they affect the economy and the housing market. So I have a little bit of information here, and we're going to look into it and see where things could have gone or they still might go, given the rhetoric that's still going around out there. Okay, first off, let's look at how tariffs have affected markets and the economy in the past. This is all U.S. data. Of course, the Canadian data is hard to get a good historical recollection of things like this. And of course, the U.S. being so much older of a country here, it's a good baseline. So here is from Investopedia, and this is what is the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act. And this was the act that was passed in 1930 by Hoover, I believe it was. Here it is here. Yeah, the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930 raised U.S. import duties with the goal of protecting American farmers and businesses from foreign competition. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act is now widely blamed for worsening the severity of the Great Depression in the U.S. and around the world. So I'm not going to get into the whole article. All the links for these articles are in the description. But essentially what happened in 1930, they were already in a recession or depression. They probably didn't realize at the time either, much like we are now, right? We're slowing economic times, calls for a recession. And this Tariff Act made things worse. It potentially took it from a recession to a depression. It said it made the depression worse. But again, they wouldn't have known where they were at that point in 1930. They probably knew they were in a recession of some kind. But yeah, it just made it worse. So back then, the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, enacted in June 1930, added about 20% to the United States' already high import duties. So again, we're looking at 25% now they were calling for, so 20%. So it's very similar, but here's a new, more modern take on it here in the next article. So it's not just me raising alarm bells. This is from the Financial Post, and this is from January 31st. So just last week, before the tariffs were threatened or potentially imposed, how Trump's threatened tariffs echo a failed American trade policy of the 1930s. And they're talking about that, and it exacerbated the Great Depression. And again, articles in the description, you can read through it. But now let's look at the housing market in the 1930s in the Great Depression. So this article is from the Harvard Business School, Real Estate Prices During the Roaring '20s and the Great Depression. Using new data on market-based transactions, we construct real estate prices indexes from Manhattan between 1920 and 1939. During the 1920s, prices reached their highest level in the third quarter of 1929 before falling 67% at the end of 1932 and hovering around that value for most of the Great Depression. The record high-end properties strongly co-moved with the stock market between 1929 and 1932. A typical property bought in 1920 would have retained only 56% of its initial value in nominal terms 2 decades later. An investment in the stock market index, including dividends, would have outperformed an investment in a typical property, including net rent income, by a factor of 5.2 over the same time period. So yeah, and again, this relates to today. So since, say, 2021, real estate prices haven't moved. They've actually declined significantly if you're talking about in real terms, but they're talking nominal terms. And yeah, the stock market has far outperformed real estate just in that last 4-year period. You're going to give it another 6 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be. You're going to see that the stock market will mostly outperform the real estate market by a number of times. And lastly, before I get on to my chart here, I just have one chart on this that I created. When did the housing market crash? And they talk about the real estate crashes here in this article. There's the '08 one, and here they are, 1837, the panic of 1837, the stock market crash in 1873, 1929, the Great Depression, and of course the housing bubble burst in the U.S. and the Great Financial Crisis in 2008. So yeah, I'm not going to bore you with the whole article, but I'm just going to read this one paragraph here. The most notable crash of the 1900s took place in 1929, with the crash of Wall Street leading to the Great Depression. As a result of the crash, prices fell up to 67%, with properties plummeting in value and the bank lending decreasing as well. Just a decade before, the real estate market had been booming, with markets like Manhattan and New York representing 10% of all real estate wealth in the country. The same market lost over half its value by the end of 1933. The repercussions of the crash are thought to have affected property values until 1960, when prices finally recovered. So very similar to today, they had a big boom before, and then it was a long recovery until 1960. So 30 years, property prices were affected, according to this article. So just to put this into context, now I'm not saying this is going to happen. I think it's very highly unlikely we're going to have a Great Depression with real estate prices crashing this much, but it's happened before, and can you imagine what it would look like if it happened right now? So down at the bottom here, we have the Great Depression. The average house price, if we mimicked the Great Depression with 67% or losing 67% of the average value, and this is from the peak. This is from the $815,000 peak we had there in 2022 in Canada. But we would be down to $270,000 per house, and we'd be back to like '06 to '08, depending on the low there, because it was two lows. You would be back to those levels, which is like, it's just unreasonable to even think about this, but this is how bad it was in the Great Depression, right? And just for other reference here, I put the Great Financial Crisis. They lost about 30% from the peak to the valley there in 2008 or 2009, whenever it bottomed out. It could have been 2010, actually. But there's the Great Financial Crisis. That would put our properties at 575 from our peak in 2022. And yeah, we've almost reached that a couple of times, or at least once there in the first year. But yeah, we're definitely not making new highs. And of course, if you watch this channel, you know where I think things are going. We'll probably at least see that 575 in the next couple of years, maybe this year. But I think we will see 2019 or 2017. Look at 2017. It's almost at that Great Financial Crisis level, the peak in 2017 there. So while I'm on the stats, I'm going to stick with my charts for this week. Next, we're moving into just an update from the Toronto Real Estate Board for January. I'm not going to get into across Canada this week because all the data is not out yet. I'll have pretty much everything for next week. So I'm going to save across Canada all the areas. But this GTA data, or this TREB data, I should say, is pretty interesting. This does include areas outside of the GTA. So anything that's part of the Toronto Real Estate Board data system. So 95,000 realtors and over half the real estate data in Canada is included in this data right here. So let's start off with the average price here. So the average price, and we're going year over year. So this January, 841,000. This is all for all property types in all areas. So condos, freeholds, everything. 838 last year, 841, so pretty much flat, 0.4% increase year over year. And if you look there at the bottom for December 2024, it was 918. So we had a pretty big drop there. What's that, 80,000 almost, or 78 or 77,000 or something. So pretty big drop there. And anyway, yeah, so market is flat at best. So when you hear about things going up, or, you know, prices are going up this year, a lot of places and economists that work for big brokerages have been saying prices are going to go up. And we did see interest rates come down, and prices haven't gone up yet. So we will see a seasonal uptick in February and March, obviously, just like we see every spring. So don't let that discourage you if you are waiting to get into the market at a better price point. Next, moving on to the days to sell, average days to sell. So last year it was 45 in January. This year's 48. So that's a 7% increase. So it takes 7% longer to sell your home this January than it did last January. Again, a reflection of the overall market. And that is higher than any other month last year, or this January. There's no other month that was 48. 46 in December was the highest month. So yeah, taking longer to sell your house. So just plan on that, obviously, when you are listing. Make sure you price it right. Next, we're moving on to the number of new listings. We need inventory, not enough listings. Well, we'll have a huge increase this January, 24% increase in new listings in January than it was last January, so 2025 over 2024. That's a huge increase. And as I've shown before, we are seeing this inventory increase. And there's many reasons for that. I'm not going to get into them, but inventory has showing it's consistently increasing, higher highs and higher lows as time goes on. But we're going to obviously just keep tracking this data as time goes. And lastly, on this set of data here, we have the number of sales. Now, they are still reporting some sales. This data is from today, February 4th. This morning, I did it yesterday, and I think it was about 14%. So we are seeing sales that are being reported because conditional sales will still get reported. And I think this is why Treb hasn't released their data yet. Usually they release like very early in the month, but they haven't released it because there's a lot more conditional sales now. So that reporting, to be more accurate, you have to wait a little longer because you have all these conditional sales. People aren't going in with no conditions like they used to. So 12% lower sales this year than last year. And last year was pretty low, mind you. Okay, now check out this next video. This is a condo in Toronto. I think this must be a realtor here, RTN. Toronto builders need to start using their brains. So this is what you get in Toronto when you're buying a condo these days. Not all condos are like this, but again, this is, I wouldn't say it's uncommon, but yeah, check out the setup here.
Someone explained to me why builders do this. So this is a washroom. This is the door, right? Then I didn't even see that there is a whole shower in the back. But look at how I'm standing, right? Look, first of all, take a look at the door, right? Now we close it and we can enter the shower. But when we come out, we cannot get out. We have to go here, right? Then open the door because, you cannot open the door and get out. Then you have to open the door and then come out. I don't understand this. If you know any builder, tell them not to do this.
There you have builders. Don't make it so you have to shimmy beside the toilet to get out of a bathroom. And this is not just a powder room. This is a three-piece bath with a shower and stuff. And I think I'm going to go back here on this video. Look at the hallway out there. Like, look at how skinny that hallway is. And I don't know if that's what part of the hallway that is, but it's just like, you can't even like walk straight. You'd have to like shimmy down that hallway too. And it looks like the hallway, but anyway, that's crazy. Here's a great chart that Daniel Foch shared here. He's always got some great things to share. To the realtors cheering on house price growth. Don't play yourself. You get fewer deals the more unaffordable housing becomes. Of course you do. CMHC found there has been a decline in the number of households moving every year. And I see it tons. Like even myself, I'm not moving. Like I don't want to overpay for a house and get a huge mortgage. I'll take a hit on mine and take a hit on the next one before I overpay for it. But yeah, you can see here there has been a decline in the number of households moving every year. This isn't first-time buyers. This is households moving, right? Percentage of households moving by year. And yeah, you can look here in the 1990s. It kind of peaked there in 1991, and then it declined because they had slow times in the 90s. Look at now, like people can't afford to move. So this is craziness. And this is only up until 2020. I'd like to see what it is now, but it has been lower than any year since 1990, and that was as of 2020. And for all you corporate Blackstone lovers and all you big corporate wigs out there, and Mark Carney and whoever else, breaking Blackstone just got torched. I forget who he works for. Blackstone? Is that who he works for? They bought this Florida home at the peak of the bubble in 2022 for $490K, planning to rent it out. But it hit hard. They couldn't fill it. The market turned. And when it came time to dump the bag, they had to slash the price, burning $130K in the process. Mind you, this is US dollars here. Wall Street landlords thought they could play Monopoly with real homes. Now they're finding out what happens when the game goes wrong. The housing correction is here. And there you have it. In Florida there, where is it? Something Chapel. It's all blurry, Florida. They went from 490 to 360 in 2 years, 2022 to 2025. So yeah, it was November it looks like there. Or no, sorry, April. So 2.5 years or so. Yeah, big losses there. So you're seeing big losses in the States right now, which you don't really hear too much about. Things have slowed down, but you don't hear about these losses yet. And lastly, this was actually my post and a reply to it. And I've talked about this, and I always tell clients about this, the hot water heater rentals in Ontario. And I believe it just seems like it's Ontario, But we, like 75 to 95% of people rent their water heaters in Ontario, their gas water heaters. It's crazy. And they pay like 3 to 4 times as much as you would pay over 10 or 15 years, whatever it is, however long a hot water heater lasts. So here's an example. This is actually real numbers here. And I say the majority of homeowners in Ontario rent their water heaters. 50-gallon power vent hot water tank, which is kind of a standard tank before you get into tankless. Buy for $2,000 installed, $11 per month for 15 years, or $16.50 a month for 10 years. If you buy it, that's what it costs you. Rent for $38 per month, or $6,800 over 15 years, $4,560 over 10 years. So it's double to triple the price, or more than triple, if you do one of these payment plans. And there's a reason these companies do these payment plans. It's because they make money. But why do the builders? So you build this whole house, or you pay for this whole house with the builder. You own the furnace, you own the windows, you own the flooring, you own the kitchen, and you're renting the water heater, and nobody says anything. And this is like this mass formation psychosis thing that happens with everything, with COVID, with the tariffs. Like everyone just piles in and accepts whatever they're told. And I'm saying this is ridiculous. Why would you rent a water heater when nothing else in your house is rented, mind you, but you're renting this water heater? Anyway, it's ridiculous. And I said, I think I'll start a rental company. It's a good business. That's why they do it. It's a great business. And so this guy, Greg Campbell, says, here's one for you, John. Many of the builders in Ottawa are now posting a list price that does not include a fridge, stove, dishwasher, which is a lot of places. But you can either buy them or rent them all. So they're saying here, it doesn't include the appliances, which again, it's here nor there, but you can buy them or rent them. So they're going to rent you appliances now. So it's this kind of like a subscription service, right? Your whole life. You have Netflix, you got your water heater, you got your thing. You'll be getting stuff from dropped off by drones from Amazon. You can rent whatever. You want to buy or rent an appliance, rent the appliance. But this is what the world is moving towards. And whose idea was this? I forget. Let me know in the comments if you remember who had this great idea. Anyway, he goes on to say, so list price $400K for a stacked townhome. The $10K or more for appliances and hot water tank is mandatory rental. Furnace and AC is also optional purchase or rental. So wow, they're just like doing everything there. And this is how the builders are trying to recover some of their costs or justify these prices. Well, we'll give you the house for $400 instead of $450, but you got to rent all this stuff. So it's just offsetting the price and hiding the cost elsewhere. Okay, so that's it for this week. So yeah, let me know in the comments, what do you think about this whole water heater rental scam? I think it's a scam because Ontario is one of the few places or only place in Canada. And I've heard feedback from many other provinces. Let me know actually in your province, where you're from, if water heaters are kind of standard when they rent them, or water heater rentals are standard, or if this is just Ontario. And I believe it's just Ontario that has the majority of these rentals. And secondly, let me know, what do you think of this tariff situation? Do you think Canada might have overreacted, knee-jerk reaction based on an emotional, feeling here over the weekend? Or do you support boycotting everything in the States and supporting our government for whatever they say? Anyway, let me know as always in the comments. And until next week, I'll see you then.